Hello and welcome to the AV4ness podcast for Monday the 15th of April. And joining me on this edition is Steve Withers.
Obviously I'd be a lot more upset if I wasn't so heavily sedated.
And Ed Sally.
He was the patron saint of quality footwear.
And welcome back to the podcast. You weren't here last week, Steve.
I wasn't. No, I was. I had my parents over. They were over from Spain for my dad's 80th birthday.
All right, well, Ed,
that must have been an absolute. Was that an absolute
They were supposed
banger?
to be over for 11 days. After 5 days of a continuous rain, my dad said, "Sod this," and flew back to Spain.
Yeah, well,
It's good to know they hold you in such high regard.
Well, they'd seen me. I'd taken them for dinner for his birthday at the Ivy in Bath, and after that, they were kind of like just killing time, really. So we went.
oh well. And anything else that you've been up to recently?
Have I? Not really. No, not particularly. Just otherwise, just work. But this week just gone. Bit of work. Week before, family mainly. That's it.
Okay.
Unless I'm forgetting something obvious, am I?
I don't know. I don't spy on you, so I have no idea. Ed, what you've been up to? I'm presuming that you'll have done museums and stuff this weekend.
It's been a bit of school holidaying. Ironically, this time last week when I was recording last week's podcast, I had got an enormous amplifier out of the box, and the following morning I stood up out of bed and all hell broke loose. So it's been a week of impeded mobility. I'm getting better now. I haven't taken any medication today, so that's the first day, ironically, since Monday where that's been the case. So yeah, that's put a bit of a brink on things. On Thursday, I decided to up the difficulty level by still having a bad back and taking both my son and his best friend out for the day, which was fun. I had to sort of sit them down, or rather, didn't sit them down. I strapped them into the car and then said to them, "Look, I can't run and I can't bend over. So if you run into any trouble, you're screwed." And they did actually seem to respond to that stirring pep talk surprisingly well. So no, that's fine. We went to the Nene Valley Preserved Steam Railway today. And that was exactly as one might expect a preserved steam railway to be. It was perfectly pleasant. And in the minutes running up to starting the recording of this podcast, I have formally signed up for a 3-month entertainment pass on Now TV, so that I can finish watching a certain fantasy-based television program to which I am reasonably fond.
Wheeler Dealers, is it still on? Is it?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you planning on 2 a.m. watching?
Am I?
Or
no, I'm just going to.
The thing is, after it's broadcast at 2 a.m., it's on Now TV. So just get up in the morning, bit of breakfast. Put
exactly. So no, I will be. Yeah. I will watch it in the day.
Well, it should be easy to avoid Twitter and Facebook and that kind of thing before you watch it. Then, if you watch it first thing in the morning.
No, yeah, I'll watch it first thing. Basically, the advantage of not having to go to work is that you can do things like that.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Or shall I say the advantage of working from home? Not the point.
Yeah,
so. I will see. Obviously, I'll wait to see with interest what level of bandwidth it snabs. But to be fair,
it shouldn't be much. Now
TV's crap, 720 in stereo. So don't worry. about
it should be fine. So yeah, that's all sorted. And I have to say, I am not paid or endorsed by Now TV, but it would appear that they've obviously got an eye on idiots like me, because there's a 3-month entertainment pass deal for 18 quid, actually maybe even less than that, which I've just signed up for. So just those bits, just 90 days.
I'm pretty sure that's aimed at all people who want to watch Game of Thrones and nothing else.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's fine. The only slight disappointing thing is I didn't realise that Elementary isn't covered as part of.
Oh no, it will be back. Last year they had all 6 seasons on. And I went through almost all of it because I'd never seen it before and really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The new season, I think, we'll be back in the summer,
right?
July, I think.
And then
so when that comes around, they'll probably put it back on again, and you can watch it to your heart's content. So yeah,
splendid. Well, that's all good then. We can stop our shameless crypto plugging of the service and move on.
Right. Okay. Well, myself, I'm saying I haven't been doing much other than working. Would be accurate again. I've got a pile of videos to edit, so but I made sure I had my.
I've got a pile of videos to watch. And visions of like a nice stack of VHS.
Well, no, actually, I've had a few reviews that I need to get done, so it has given me the excuse to sit down and actually watch stuff that I've been meaning to watch for a while. So I'm steadily making progress at the minute. It helps when I've got AVRs to review, because then I can use the cinema room. If I haven't got stuff like that, I don't know about you, Steve, but it's the fact that you've got to get up, go through the cinema room, put the projector on, let it warm up for 20 minutes, get your bits and pieces together, and go into another room. I don't know why I'm finding that difficult to do if I haven't got a reason to go to the cinema room.
No, I usually use it as an escape, really. Hide off in the home cinema.
Married life going swimming.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think it's just called Married Life, isn't it? No, I mean, Laura's busy watching stuff on the telly, and she does watch some of it I like, and some of it not so much. But yeah, I should just nip off next door. I tend to watch because TV shows have become, like, for example, Star Trek Discovery, scope ratio, production values through the roof.
Yep.
Watch it on the big screen. It's awesome.
I've been watching it on the 870 before it went back this week. And,
I mean, it stands up to that, and Game of Thrones again. Well, I mean, obviously now TV's shortcomings notwithstanding, production-wise, Game of Thrones is as good as any film. So these are the kind of things that you could happily watch on the big screen, and not feel like you're wasting bulb time.
Yep. No, it's been good this last couple of weeks. I've been catching up, so I'm almost up to date with Discovery as well, and it's really, really good. I'm finding.
I'd love to see what Star Trek fans think of it, because obviously I'm not. I've watched the movies, a bit of the telly show, the original series and that sort of stuff, but I've never been a massive Star Trek fan. I've always been more of a Star Wars fan. So, but I do know that Star Trek has always prided itself on being a lot more scientifically accurate than your average TV show, the average sci-fi show. But since this new series has been doing things like time crystals, I'm guessing that science has gone right out the window. Still, I'm enjoying it. I mean, as a non-Star Trek fan, I think it's quite good fun. It's not. It's a bit dumb, but and scientifically, it's cobblers.
But it's entertaining.
But yeah, it's entertaining. And it looks fantastic.
And it does.
The shot when they entered the bridge of the Enterprise for the first time last week. That looked stunning. It looks really good.
Don't talk anymore, because I'm not quite up to that point yet, but I'll look forward to that.
It's not really a big spoiler. I mean, the Enterprise was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I've been doing mainly. But car season has started. So this weekend I got out with the American Car Club on Saturday, it looked like it was going to be a beautiful day, and it was. The sun was out and all the rest of it. As soon as I stood out the car, because it's on the coast next to the harbour, Jesus Christ, it's freezing cold. I had 2 fleeces on, a jacket on, a woolly hat. But if you look at the photographs, it looks like it's a stunning summer's day, and it certainly wasn't. Spent most of the time in the coffee shop, and I don't drink coffee. But yeah, it's been good fun getting the cars out, and we did a breakfast meet last weekend, which was something we haven't done before, so that was quite good. And a full Toby Carvery breakfast for a £5, you can't go wrong with that. So enjoyed it. Right, so that's us all up to date. We're all boring, we'll all be doing too much work and all the rest of it, but you're going to benefit from that, dear listener, because we'll have plenty to talk about in the weeks ahead. So before we go any further, it's current competition time. Ed, why don't you do the honours here?
Right, you can win a copy of The White Reindeer on Blu-ray, which closes on the 18th of April, so you'll need to get a shift on with that one. You can win a copy of The Bouncer on Blu-ray, which closes on the 21st of April. And then win copies of Criterion's April titles, and please don't ask what they are, because I do not know, on the 6th of May. I'm sure it'll be on the website if the content of something that you can get for free is in some way of interest to you. All of these competitions are open to the AV Forums members resident in the UK, basically except Phil. So feel free to get stuck in. And before you ask, there are no previous competition winners, but I'm sure there will be some in
there'll be lots next week, because there's a few of them sitting in the little holding area in the competition page.
Not the winners themselves. It's not Guantanamo.
Yeah, but there's a few titles in there, so we should have some winners next week. And before we go to hardware news, just a quick reminder again, a sponsor message coming up. The Beer 52 deal is back, so regular listeners, you'll remember this from last year, beer52.com/AV Forums deal, which was made available to you, and that basically it's 8 craft beers, a ferment magazine and a snack delivered to your door, next day shipping, and you can try it for free, and all you normally do is pay $5.95 postage. But we've managed to get an exclusive deal. So you get the postage for $4.95 going ahead with this deal. So you can check that out at beer52.com for the exclusive $4.95 postage. You get the 8 beers, you get the magazine, you get the snack, and there is no minimum commitment. So you can take the free case, try the beers, see what you think. If you like it, then I believe it's £24 a month after that on a subscription basis. It's a craft beer club. You get beers from all around the world to try out, as well as the different snacks and the magazine. If it's not for you, you can pause and cancel at any time. If you like dark beers, then you can get yourself the mixed case, and if you like lighter beers, there's also the light case, and it's pretty easy to follow what's going on. So all you need to do is head over to beer52.com/AV forums and sign up for the deal and enjoy your beers. And that concludes the sponsor message. Coming up next, hardware news. Okay, so moving on, hardware reviews. We are still audio heavy, don't worry, TV reviews are coming soon. I should be getting the Sony in this week, and I've had the Samsung for...
You've got a Samsung, yeah?
I've had the Samsung for a week, and haven't really had a chance to...
Preview.
I haven't really had a chance to put it through its paces. I am using it as a normal TV at the moment. So I haven't put any movie content on it, I haven't done any measurements or whatever. I basically haven't had time to do that. I'm setting time aside this week to crack on and get all that done. A couple of things I have noticed that I haven't noticed with the Q9FN, but I do notice with the Q90. One of them is the filter on the front of the screen. And during the day, my window is open, the blind is open, which means it's sitting slightly... It's not sitting directly opposite, but it's sitting to one side from this light source. And if the screen goes black, you see stripping from the filter. And if it's a strong light, it actually breaks into RGB colours across the screen. So you can actually see the filter. I've never noticed that on the Q9FN, and the Q9FN sat in the same place in that living room. So that was one thing I have noticed. Not distracting, unless the screen goes black and you're watching during the day with a bright light shiner on the screen. It does reject the light, it's just that you can actually see the filter and how the filter's made up. So I did notice that. Local dimming seems to be really good. It hasn't drawn its attention to itself. Contrast doesn't seem as bright and doesn't seem as...
It isn't as bright as the Q9. And it doesn't go quite as dark as the Q9.
Yeah. And I've noticed that just
for deliberate reasons in the case of the... I think they deliberately done this.
Yeah.
I think they got a lot of... Apparently, with the Q9, there was a lot of feedback from consumers saying, it's a bit bright. So they toned the brightness down for that reason.
And the other thing is you can see the way that it's managing the halo suppression and the blooming. So it's suppressing that, because I did put the new Spears and Mansell disc in, just went through a few patterns just to see what it was like, and there is one which starts at a 1% window and it grows all the way to 100% quite quickly. Right. And that's basically to look at ABL on OLEDs. But what I did notice was, until it got to about 10%, it was incredibly dim and then suddenly got brighter, and you could actually see it doing that. And again, I'm putting that down to the suppression of the blooming and haloing. But yeah, I haven't done any in-depth testing yet, but these are just things that I have picked up just by using the set.
I think the light rejection filter, I noticed, because my Windows is the side, that if you have a light source at the side of the TV, it's probably more of an issue than having a light source directly in front of the TV, because certainly with light hitting the TV from the front, that filter's like a black hole. It just seems to swallow it all entirely.
No, it's really noticeable. I've got a...
From the side?
From the side, but also dead on. You can see it dead on as well, which surprised me, because again, Q9's not like that. Now, I've got a window, and I've also got my Mac sitting to the side of it as well. So yeah, there's two quite strong light sources there, and even during the day you can see it. Now, this is me talking, and you're always sitting looking for things and all the rest of it. I don't think you would really notice it during normal viewing in a normal room. It's just that obviously I'm looking for it, but it is quite obvious. And like I say, if it's a strong white light, it breaks it into the RGB, and you get like a rainbow across the screen, which I also noticed that on the Sony ZF-9. it did a similar thing. So I'm wondering if it's the way that the light's directed as well.
With the wider viewing angles.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with that as well. So yeah, that's interesting. I will have lots more time this week to obviously look at that in a lot of detail and do some real testing. I'll get some of the video lights, quite strong LED video lights, and play about with that and see what kind of effect that has on the filter, as well as obviously doing all the normal tests. But yeah, it's not as, I was going to say, it's not as dynamic, it's not as the blacks aren't as deep and so on, but at the same time as the Q9 FN, but at the same time it's not clipping, so you are getting quite a bit more shadow detail in the image as well.
Yes, although that was the reason why I think they've done that, isn't it? To try and give you a bit more above black detail.
And we saw that in their demo. You know, they had the Q9 in their demo thing with the Sony and the OLED as well. And you know, with the material, it didn't have that dynamic pop that the Q9 had, but it had more detail, had more shadow detail, and it actually, you know, looked a lot more balanced than the Q9 did. So yeah, interested.
And obviously, when you say it's not as bright, it's still very bright. It's not quite as bright.
It's brighter, yeah. It's brighter than an OLED.
Just about anything else.
And the nice thing with the Spears and Mansell discs, I don't know if you've had a chance to go through yours yet, Steve, but they've got a nice little tone mapping test pattern. And you can see the detail up to where and how the TV's actually tone mapping the signal, and you can see up to 1800 nits detail on this. So that is
so on a 4000 nit.
No, that's set.
Is that using?
That's set to 2000 nits. Right. So you can see up to. So that's really.
That's basically up to that's up to its peak brightness then.
Yeah. Essentially. So yeah. But like I say, in-depth testing to do this week. Looking forward to getting stuck into that. And like I say, I've got a Sony XG95 turning up. It's a retail sample. So this Samsung came from Samsung, but I do have a retail TV coming from a retailer for the Sony, and quite interested to see that as well, because I think that's going to be an important TV for.
Which one is this?
The XG95.
XG95.
Yeah. So this is going to be, you know, their top end LED LCD TV, really, if you discount the ZG, which is quite a bit bigger. So TV reviews are coming. So before we go any further, let's go back to audio. Let's go Ed first. Ed, you've been looking at the KEF LSX speakers. Tell us all about them.
I'll unmute before I start talking. It's like a professional and everything. Yes. Those of you who pay any attention to what KEF has been up to, this has been a story of a few stages. Some years ago, they launched the LS50, which was part of their sort of concept line of speakers, which isn't a range. They're one-offs designed to attend to things that have been bugging KEF's design team. Sometime after they appeared as passive speakers, KEF actually then turned them into active speakers, and they remain on sale. Now, KEF's take on what an active speaker should be in the 21st century is different to some other British companies. The speaker is still active. The crossover is in front of the amplification, so it's a true active loudspeaker. But rather than just end it in a pair of XLR inputs, one per speaker, KEF turned it into a self-contained audio system with UPnP streaming, digital input, so on and so forth. And that made for a relatively expensive product, although it must be said a very good one. The LSX takes that same principle and makes a smaller loudspeaker. It's not as dramatic looking, but it's £1,000 instead of over £2,000, I believe, for the LS50 Active. And this has been an interesting product to review. Let's get the good stuff done, because there's lots and lots of good stuff to talk about. These are absolutely outstanding sounding products. KEF really does know their way around the business of turning, or in this case, designing an active speaker. It's clearly something that they've put some thought and some effort into, and it's a really beautifully balanced product. I'm aware on the running order that shortly after this, Steve is going to talk about a soundbar that does everything except mow the lawn and costs about 12p. So when I say that I think it's an absolutely outstanding partner for television, you have to take that as a pinch of salt, because it doesn't do anything like as much as the product that he's going to talk about. And it requires two main sockets, one for each speaker and things like that. But I will stand by what I said, that in terms of, and I mentioned this in the review, in terms of just their ability to deliver a beautifully coherent partnership to the image that you see on screen, they are better than a number of products I've tested at a lot more money. They were genuinely outstanding for that. And musically, of course, they delivered as well. You get UPnP streaming. You get Tidal and Spotify support on board. There's an optical input, which I was using for the television. There's Bluetooth as well, and it's aptX capable, perfectly decent, stable Bluetooth. All of this has to be set against the issue that at the moment, the control app that makes this work just isn't very good. For starters, there are two apps, which is normally a bad sign. When you haven't actually got all of the controls into a single piece of software, that's possibly a suggestion that you've got some way to go in this. So there's one app to set them up, then another app to control them. And I have the luxury here of being able to test, obviously, on both iOS and Android. I have to be honest, if you only have Android products in your household, the LSX is not yet ready for you to buy them. If you are making do with the Android app, you have my sympathies. It is just shite. I could dress that up in some other way, but the performance on Android is sluggish, unresponsive. The app dials out every now and again and decides it doesn't want to talk to the speakers anymore. It's just not commensurate with a product that costs £1,000. The iOS app is better, but by that I mean it can at least be made to work reliably. It's not terribly fast or terribly intuitive. I'm probably going to start being a bit more of a nutbuster on terms of app quality. Another one of the reviews we've got coming up in this cycle is for a product which has a truly outstanding two products actually that have truly outstanding control software. And the long and the short of it is that if you as a company don't feel that you can deliver an app which is up to those standards, you need to start looking at third-party implementations, because at the moment this is an outstanding piece of engineering being hamstrung by the quality of the software that's being supplied with it. Now, I've given them a positive review, and I have recommended them because software, unlike a design issue, is not set in stone. Kef has the ways and means of changing this and improving this. But my comments are, I don't think if you only have an Android device, wouldn't recommend going for them at the moment, because you just find using them to be simply too frustrating. And I think that really the app does need to get a lot better for them to really get the recognition that the sound quality and performance that they have so richly deserves. I'd also, as a final finishing touch, I think that Kef's been very brave and very successful with how they look. They've decided to cover the cabinet in a sort of fabric material, and that could so easily just have looked crap, and it really doesn't. The blue review pair that were sent to me, they just knocked my socks off. I thought they looked absolutely fantastic. They're products that will be something that are a talking point in a room rather than just trying to hide away and be a non-entity thing. It's a so nearly thing from Kef, and I really hope they just finish the last piece of the puzzle off.
Good stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in those, the review will be up by the time you listen to the podcast. And one review that is up at the minute, so Steve doesn't have to go into it in too much detail, is what he's going to talk about next, which is a kazoo. When I looked at the image, that's what it looks like in that.
It does look like a kazoo, doesn't it? I was going to start this piece with a question for you guys, but Ed sort of rather ruined it with his comment during this bit. But basically, I was going to say to you, if I offered you a 2.1 channel soundbar with an active wireless subwoofer, 2 HDMI inputs, an HDMI output that supports ARC, decoding with Dolby Digital and DTS, built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, a full-size remote control, a remote app for setting it up, and also built-in Amazon Alexa, how much would you think that would cost?
250 quid.
You'd be wrong. Oh, hang on, I shouldn't have said the word Alexa then. You'd be wrong. Hang on. Alexa,
Oh, get your wiretap out.
You want to know the price for Alexa?
Alexa, stop.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome to the future.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Sorry. So it was listed at £249. In my review, I mentioned that you can get it for £227, but I just noticed in the feedback thread, someone's pointed out that you can now buy it in Richer Sounds for £199, which is frankly mad.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that the decoding is lossless. It's not immersive decoding.
No, it's not. No, I mean, look, for £199, you've got to be realistic here. But the fact they managed to deliver all that as it is nothing short of staggering. The fact it actually sounds good is amazing. Yes, it's Dolby Digital lossy formats, obviously. You've only got 2.1 channels as well, so don't expect any kind of surround immersion. But at least they don't make any claims to something that they're not going to be able to deliver. It's a 2.1 channel soundbar. Sounds great with music, sounds great with TV programs, and it sounds good with movies within the limitations of what it can do.
Yeah.
But what is amazing is they have, I mean, it looks like when I say they've built in Amazon Alexa, they've literally taken an Amazon Dot, and built it into the middle of the soundbar. If you look at the photographs, you can see it's exactly the same with the four controls and the circular.
So what's the price for one of them? At the minute, it's about £70, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is a fully operational Dot built into this soundbar, and you can use it just like any other Amazon speaker. So it does all that, but also you can also control it with your voice. But it does come with a very nice fully sized remote control, which is unusual at this price point, and 2 HDMI inputs. I think is unheard of at this price point. So I mean, looking at it, like I say, there's a remote app, so you use that to set it up so it connects to your Wi-Fi. You've got Bluetooth if you want to use, from your phone, but obviously I wouldn't really bother with that because you can just tell Alexa to go and play whatever you want from whether you've got a Spotify account or an Amazon Music account, whatever. You can just connect to that. So, I mean, bang for buck. I was writing the conclusion and I thought, well, I literally can't think of any. The closest that I can think of in terms of competitor would have been the Wharfdale Vista S200S that I reviewed a couple of months ago.
That's considerably more simple than this thing, isn't it?
Exactly. That's actually now more expensive than this and is very limited in terms. It has almost no features really. It's a very basic. It's just a soundbar, an active sub, and an HDMI output with ARC, and that's really on Bluetooth, and that's it. This is just. I mean, I can only assume they are not either making this unbelievably cheap or are using it as some kind of loss leader to
I was about to say,
market.
do you think that this is a category killer?
Yeah.
Where essentially you say, to hell, I was going to use a different word, but to hell with our margins, let's spoil everyone else's day, get the attention, get the plaudits, and essentially it gives us the footing that we can use from there. I mean, let's not forget that we've seen this over the years. It comes with mixed successes, but both Onkyo, I mean, they were talking 10 years ago now when they did it, but tremendous effect. They went from being, yes, to a key player, and under slightly different terms, because I'm sure that I do believe that members of the company do listen from time to time. But Q Acoustics, without actually doing a product dump, essentially aggressively went and forged their place in the market. Using a number of well-established routines, and this just smacks of the same thing. I mean, as you say, let's assume, obviously, as part of the licensing, that they're not having to rip bits of Amazon Dots apart and just thrust them into the thing. But nonetheless, that will be a bill of materials from Amazon with the licensing and all the rest of it. So that's a fixed cost that can't go anywhere, along with the other licenses that they've had to pay for the other bits and bobs. This does look like just a determined effort to establish a reputation more than anything else.
And it looks like a kazoo.
I think that might be the case, and it looks like a kazoo. No, I mean, honestly, if you want a similar feature set, you're looking at £400-500 from the competition. Yeah. I don't know of any soundbar that I've seen or even heard of that comes close to this feature set, anything approaching this price. If someone does know of something, please let us know in the feedback thread to this podcast. But I mean, it's just staggering value. I mean, it sounds great. It works really well. It's doddle to set up, and it does exactly what it's designed to do. And I was stunned, absolutely stunned when I saw the price, and I'm even more stunned now as I realise you can get it for less than £200.
Yeah.
Crazy. But if you're in the market for if your budget's if you're looking for a soundbar and you've got up to £300 to spend, buy this. Simple as that.
And spend £100 on chocolate.
Something else.
£100 of chocolate.
On Easter eggs.
But I mean, obviously, we were discussing this even if you're thinking, well, actually, I've got something more ornate. I mean, this is priced at a point where all of a sudden televisions in other rooms can suddenly get a very significant boost in performance and output.
Absolutely, and you get Amazon Alexa to boot.
And
when I think about my son, my son firmly believes that all things are controlled by shouting at them, which it leads to interesting interactions with Valve.
Is that how he controls you?
Yeah, pretty much. But obviously, you can talk at the. I didn't realise you can talk at the LG remotes, can't you? And that seems to have.
Yes, LG. The TVs have got Google Assistant built in now.
Yeah, well, he knows that. I didn't.
Yeah,
So
I'll tell you what, this last week, and it took me about 4 days to figure out how to do it, but this Samsung TV comes with Bixby switched on.
Yeah.
And it picks up on your voice.
Turn it off.
But I wasn't talking, so it was listening to the TV, and every time something sounded like B, it kept interrupting and knocking the audio off.
Driving me nuts. There is an option.
Yeah, I found it.
Found it
eventually.
To turn the near field mic off.
Yeah.
I have
so
to
it only
honest,
works when you press the button.
I hate myself for saying this, but I have started shouting at my new iPad to turn its alarm off. And I did ask it what the weather was going to be like this morning, and I immediately hated myself for doing it. But
yeah, I still find it like that. I find it degrading talking to something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the element of it's smoke and mirrors. Cut the strings and it has no life and all that. But nonetheless, it is even into my. I am vehemently opposed to the data capture, and I mean the level of cynicism about the Google searches that my phone is pre-programmed to answer is breathtaking. The only way it can, I mean, essentially, when I find myself getting auto-completed returns on a 37-year-old Valve amplifier, your arguments that it's not listing all the time.
Well, it's confirmed this week it is, and its humans are listening in as well. So. They are actually listening to what you say. The other thing that annoys me...
Not all the time, presumably.
No, not all the time.
But they obviously... when they say they do it to try and improve the way that it feeds back to you. Although they did say something which is a bit worrying, which is that if they hear something unpleasant happening, they were told by Amazon not to get involved. So. Yeah.
So, there's lots of moral issues around that one. Yeah,
there is, isn't there?
But you see, the thing that annoys me about AI is that you've got to speak to it in a certain way. And this is what's really annoying because I don't speak like that.
Until I can have the sort of easygoing banter that David Hasselhoff had with Kit, I'm not really up for this.
I mean, the command bar is a fully functioning smart assistant, which it does perfectly well, like any other Amazon speaker. But if you want to control it, you have to be quite specific in the way you tell it to do things with your voice. And sometimes it worked for me, and sometimes it didn't work for me. Like volume up, it used to work fine. If I said HDMI 1 or something like that, it didn't always go to HDMI 1. So, and then you find yourself just reaching for the remote control because it's quicker.
Yeah,
but
it's normally quicker.
Yeah, I mean, that to me does strike me as the very textbook definition of a Best Buy badge. It's like, what on earth do you recommend instead?
Yeah.
Basically, if you read the review, then go and buy one. Simple.
Even if you don't have a television, just in case. Just go and buy one.
There we go, and we're not sponsored by Polk, so I just need to point that out. That is genuinely.
Although if Polk wants to sponsor us, do get in touch.
There you go. Ed's cheap, right? Hardware news. There's been a couple of news stories that I thought might be interesting to talk about. First one was that Sony have introduced a new Blu-ray player, 4K Blu-ray player. And once again, this is why Samsung withdrew from the market, because it only offers Dolby Vision, Steve. It doesn't do HDR10+.
It's basically an X700, but in a nicer chassis by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So it's again, it's like, where's the market for this? Because
if you're buying a player, get the UB820 from Panasonic. Job done.
Absolutely.
The story really. End the conversation.
I've got to say, I have been absolutely gobsmacked with this Panasonic. I've been using it on a regular basis now, and it is for the money that you can pick it up for. It's absolutely outstanding.
It's crazy. I actually just bought a UB9000 primarily because unlike the 820, it has two projector options, bright and what they call basic, but basically that's a 350 nit projector option, which works. And Panasonic and JVC have been working together to so that their new projectors, the new N series projectors, and the 820 and the 9000 work in unison with each other. And I've got to say that the using the HDR optimizer on the 9000, you can do the same with the 820.
Yeah.
In conjunction with JVC, some of the best projected HDR I've seen so far. It really works well. It does a brilliant job.
It's really good that you can actually let it take over the vast majority of the tone map, and so the projector's not, and it does make a big difference.
That
really
feature alone, particularly if you've got a projector, that feature alone is worth buying one of the Panasonics for that alone.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't have bought
but they also do everything else. The one problem they've got is that they don't match streaming content to the correct frame rate. That's the only my one quibble really.
Yeah, but then you
can't turn off the watch, can you? When like on Netflix, it's always in Dolby Vision.
Yeah, I've got all that switched off because I've got in the cinema room where I've also got an Apple TV in the cinema room. So I use the Apple TV for the streaming services, and I just use the disc player for the discs. And
if you're thinking of using it for that, that's my one complaint. Yeah. Otherwise, though, it's no brainer. Go and buy an 820. Job done.
Absolutely right. So
good news for Sony then. Well done, guys.
Well, this is Phil's point now.
But as Phil's pointed out, if you don't support both formats, you're onto a loser from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, well,
and that's saying that we prefer HDR10 Plus against Dolby Vision or whatever.
But you just need to hedge your bets.
Yeah, you've got.
I mean, you haven't got a lot of choice these days in terms of players. I mean, there's the Sonys, there's the Panasonics, and like Pioneer, but they're like massively expensive. I'm not entirely sure.
I have to be honest. I find myself, much to my disgust, actually considering buying a 4K player, but it will be the cheapest, bendiest, and nastiest of the lot.
I think Steve's reviewing just the player for you.
UB450, I reckon, would be your best bet. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a sense, it doesn't need. I don't care. Obviously, all the streaming options I want are on the television itself. I don't need any of those things. It's just I did. And I hate myself for saying this. I went to do an off-site multi-channel speaker review for another publication. I'm sorry. And I did watch the Gemini launch and sequence for First Man. It's like, do you know what? Being entirely beholden on streaming services, I think there's just enough argument, and the players are just cheap enough that I might find myself, depending on what my next digs looks like, might find myself just having a backup disc player to cover some bases.
It is amazing
how probably not going multi-channel for the equipment though. I have decided that.
Okay. But it is amazing the price of the players now. We just need the discs to start coming down in price. They're still hovering around about the $24.99 mark in the UK, and a bit more expensive in the US. So and the 2 for £30 offers there's never anything decent in there, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the only thing that needs to come down is the price of the disc. But you're definitely getting a better performance disc based.
No, that's no
absolutely. Right. So the last bit of hardware we were going to discuss is Marantz have gotten into the all-in-one game with their Melody X. Ed.
Well, in fairness to Marantz, just because someone will point this out if I don't, Marantz have been quite keen in this category for a while. But what is interesting about this is that a number of companies that Marantz has been traditionally competing in have gone, oh, we don't know about this more affordable sector. We don't think people who won't want to be named have decided, well, we can build the product, but it gets we just don't we don't find that either us or our dealers are actually possible to really make any money off it. And it's also interesting because, let's face it, Marantz's sister brand Denon is, for many years was the company for these sort of products. But nonetheless, Marantz has gone and done a very, very nice job over the years of these products. And this is the new system, the Melody. Very imaginative, guys. Well done. But nonetheless, slightly type standard name aside, it's a nice looking specification. It gets a lot done. And at 630 quid Well, it's a lot, it's not cheap, but nonetheless, it's got the inputs required to support a selection of, your television and, possibly your Skybox and things like that. I mean, the only connection under those circumstances you might want to add would be an HDMI ARC, but they've obviously decided against that. It gets a lot done, and I bet you pound to a penny this will sound all right as well. All of its relations have always sounded more than halfway decent. The only one I find, item I find fascinating that they've included is the CD mechanism.
Yeah, that was a bit strange, wasn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, if you're covering off all bases and you're predestined route for this player to be a success, this product to be a success rather. Let's face it, you can find melody X's going into certain systems where the CD mechanism is never used once, and then equally going into other systems where none of the streaming paraphernalia is ever used at any stage. And I imagine that the households where both are used is actually quite rare. But it's like it occurred to me that I will probably go the full 3-year lease on my car without ever sticking a CD in there. It has a CD player, probably the last Ford to do so, but I'll never use it. But then equally, my dad he doesn't have he's got a Honda, but nonetheless, this is his first car without a CD mechanism, and he's not enjoying it. So I think they've just been quite savvy. It's a weird thing for us to be looking at, but I think it ensures that there's a part of the client base that they can reach that they would fail to reach if it wasn't present.
Is it Melody X or Melody 10?
X. There haven't been 9 others.
You've got to ask nowadays, though, haven't you?
Well, no, there's certain products that Marantz have made have existed in many quantities, but I think it'll do quite well. Interestingly, in the lifestyle photo accompanying the review, those are the Definitive Technology speakers that I reviewed that I couldn't find the name for, and I still can't because they're not named in the photo. But those were the ones that I listened to with the passive radiator in the top. So there's some good on Sound United branding work going on there now as well from them as well. So well done them.
Okay, so that wraps up Hardware. We'll be back in a sec with movie reviews and news. Right, okay, let's move on to movie section. Lots to talk about in this section, actually, because there's been quite a few things going on over the weekend. But first of all, we need to do the film review, which I did go to the cinema to see this, and I hate myself for it.
Is it really that bad?
Yeah, like I said in... you weren't here for last week's podcast, but like I said, I thought I was going to walk out before I went in to see it, and the last film I walked out on was Robin Hood Men in Tights. And I went in with low expectations, and he still managed to come in.
It's a real shame because I really like Neil Marshall.
Yeah, you see, his hands are definitely tied behind his back. I think there's been a lot of issues behind the scenes. I think Final Edit was taken off him long ago. I think he had any hand in that just by the mess that is on the screen.
He's
exactly.
made some really fun movies, so I can't believe he could cock it up so badly.
Yeah, and I've got to say, there's some moments in this where you can tell it's his hand. You can tell it's his style. And then there's other things that just make absolutely no sense and miss the mark by miles. And unfortunately, there's more of that than there is it actually, being good. The problem is the story and the way that they use certain characters within it. And the other thing is the swearing. So they've obviously, whoever's wrote this, Andrew Cosby, who wrote it.
Never heard of him.
Neither have I. But anyway,
we won't be hearing much more from him either. But
he's obviously looked at Deadpool and thought, "Oh, it's cool to swear. It's cool to say and all that kind of thing. I'm gonna bring this in, and I'm gonna make it foul mouthed, and I'm gonna drop F-bombs left, right, and centre." And it just it reminded me
the nuance. The skill of
it reminded me of the kid at school. You know that kid at school that came in with, and he just swore just for the sake of swearing, and just to make himself sound cool and all the rest of it. And that's what it comes across as. It comes across.
How on earth did those people stand out in Scotland, Phil? Can I just say it? a company, a country, sorry, which has taken a certain
Sweden to a
word
whole,
with
whole
F
new,
and
yeah.
turned it into an adjective.
form.
So
To
it's
end
an art
all
form.
adjectives is
Yeah.
quite it's
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
art.
you just have to look at Billy Connolly and look at what he got away with for all those years, and it was just because he had a charming way of saying "f*** off." But yeah,
I did feel exactly the same way about a film that I otherwise enjoyed, which was Logan. I thought Logan was really good, but the fact they were swearing it just seemed unnecessary.
yes, and that's
and
how it
it-
comes
yeah,
across. Yeah, and
Almost as
you wa-
unnecessary as snakes on a plane, where they were
Right.
doing it to actually get the certificate up.
yeah, but you see, this is the thing for me as well. They've gone for an adult theme, but then they've taken some really strange directions with the story. And I don't think I'm spoiling things when I say that King Arthur's in it. Starts in the 500s, so King Arthur's in it. You've got the occult Nazis from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I mean absolutely them from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean,
In fairness, that's been part of the origin story because it's also
Yeah.
in Guillermo del Toro's.
I know,
original
but
Top Boy film,
it's
so-
the fact that they're mixing all this kind of thing though. You've also got the witches and you've got this blinking boar or pig man with a Scouse accent, whose every second word is f***ing or f*** or.
It's not Man Bear Pig from South Park, is it?
It's
Or would
just
that have improved it?
it's just. And the best thing about it is David Harbour, but he is nowhere near as good as
Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman, and he's the best thing in it, and he's still a mile off Del Toro
Yeah.
stuff.
And also, does it make sense to reboot something that was only 10 years old?
Yeah,
I mean, you had Hellboy and Hellboy 2, and Hellboy 2 was only 2008, so it was only 11 years ago they made Hellboy 2. I know for a long time they were going to make a third Del Toro Hellboy movie, which would have been, I think, preferable.
Absolutely.
But
The shame is that there's some good ideas in here, but they've also just thrown everything else and the kitchen sink at it. and it is like watching a train wreck. Because I was sat there with my jaw just getting further and further, opening further and further and further at just how bad this thing was and how they were
I
taking
think
it.
if you want to watch Trainwreck, we're going to be discussing that a bit later in this podcast.
Right, okay. But yeah, for me, 2 or 3 out of 10. Do not go and see it. Luckily, I didn't go to IMAX. I didn't pay the $5 for IMAX. I just went on my Limitless card. So
So as I pointed out, all you lost was,
was
2
2 hours
years
of
of
my-
2 hours of finite life.
yeah,
It felt like 2 years.
2 years, sorry. Yeah, that's,
yeah. And the thing was, this was opening day and it was empty. There was me and 3 other people in a 300-seat auditorium, and that was at 5 o'clock at night as well. So it wasn't like it was early morning screening. And
I don't
it
think
is
the world
Easter
was
holidays.
crying out for another Hellboy movie, was it really?
No. Well, the fact that it's made $12 million over the weekend.
It's a miracle.
It does. I have to be honest. It's. I mean, let's face it. The second Del Toro Hellboy is not a vintage film in its
I
own
prefer the
right.
second one to the first one because the second one
do
is
you?
more it's pure Del Toro, whereas the first film you could sense an awful lot of studio notes getting passed to him. Like we needed a human character in here, and we need more of this and more of that, and some sort of romance and this kind of thing. Whereas Del Toro just did what he wanted in the second one. I think.
Well, I
Therefore-
respectfully disagree. I prefer the first one, but I am a sucker for
And-
Nazis. What can I say?
And another thing that we learnt in this is that Ian McShane can't save everything that he's in.
No.
He's done a pretty good job though.
He's
done
done
an
a pretty
amazing
good
job
job
on
over the years, but
Bloodsport,
even
so-
he couldn't save this turd. Even he couldn't manage it. It's goddamn awful. And the thing is, there's good material there, if you know what I mean. There's good source material that could make an interesting movie, and certainly with the way that things have moved on with DC and Marvel and their methodology to making a film, this makes Shazam look like an absolute Oscar winner. It's and it's not a great film, but it's a fun film, Shazam. Whereas this is just. They've just thrown everything at the screen. There's been too many hands on it. There's been too many decisions made, probably away from Neil Marshall.
I have to
And
say that a number of the special effects look decidedly
It did.
ropey
It looked
as well.
really ropey. The whole third act was just an absolute mess. And what it felt like was somebody sitting in the writer's room and thinking, what about if King Arthur's in it and he slices this witch into 6 pieces and then we distribute her pieces across the country, and and we set it in Britain because Britain's like an old country.
Do you think that there might have been a massive pile of blow in the table at some point as well?
Yeah, it's just a hodgepodge and it's a real mess, and even the CGI and stuff is just done cheaply, and and the swearing's uncalled for, and I never laughed once in the whole thing, not even ironically. It's soulless. It's a mess. So don't go and see it, people. See it on a streaming service in about 4 weeks.
Oh, low blow.
Yeah, there you go. Right, so I'm hoping there's some decent stuff to go to the cinema and see this week.
You're out of luck, mate.
Am I? Okay.
Looks at this. I mean, okay, let's put it this way. Would you be opening your film this week, given what's opening next week?
No, have you got your ticket?
Yeah. That was so annoying. I've been monitoring the Odeon website for about a month, waiting for those tickets to go on sale. And as soon as I realised they'd gone on sale, bloody thing crashed.
Right.
And by the time I actually managed to get tickets, the good seats were taken for the Thursday and the Friday. So I'm seeing it on the Monday, which basically means I'm going to avoid everyone that weekend. And as for the podcast, do not mention anything to me about the film.
Right. You might have to switch off for the 5 minutes because I'm going to see it.
Oh no, I will. I was going to go away. I don't want to hear it.
I'm going to see it on the Friday.
I'm not seeing it until Monday morning. Yeah. Well, 12 o'clock on Monday. I'm seeing it then because I wanted really, really good seats in IMAX 3D, and I wasn't going to compromise on that. And I was so annoyed because I've been checking it every bloody day, and then it just completely collapsed on me. Crashed on me.
I was annoyed because I wanted to see the double header. I thought I'm going to do this. I haven't done it in so many.
It's a 3-hour movie. You're never going to stay awake.
I know that. I was thinking that anyway, and then I realised I'm in London on the Thursday anyway, so there's no way I could do it. I've got to go on the Friday. So I think I'm going to Friday lunchtime in IMAX 3D. And again, it's not a great seat, but I want to see it before the podcast anyway.
I'm going on the Monday, but I've got best seats in the house. Obviously, I wanted to see it before the podcast so we could talk about it, but
yeah,
I guess
there won't be any spoilers anyway.
Spoilery, so yeah. But I'm seeing it on the Monday, so but I do have my tickets. Yes.
Okay, so I'll just send you tweets and stuff.
It's without doubt the film I'm looking forward to the most this year by miles.
Yeah. So anyway, they've also had to dump some films into the cinema this week for people
who want to go to the cinema. You can go and see Dragged Across Concrete, which is a Certificate 18. Comes out on Friday, and it stars Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn. Actually, once two overzealous cops get suspended from the force, they must delve into the criminal underworld to get their proper compensation. Okay. Can't say that really rings too many bells.
Mel, it
doesn't sound anything like as funny as Dodgeball.
No.
Yeah, Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn. That's a strange combination.
Together at last.
It's like nuts and gum.
Yeah, it's also 2 hours and 39 minutes long.
Yeah, I just saw that. That's a hell of a long time.
Yeah, I'll give that a miss. Red Joan is a 12A. It's an hour and 41 minutes. That's a decent length. Directed by Trevor Nunn. I didn't know he made movies. And it's biography, basically, the story of Joan Stanley, who was exposed as the KGB's longest-serving British spy. I've never heard of her.
That's got something I'd really like to watch on television on a Sunday evening, written all over it. But I don't want to go to. Well, I mean, as you know, I don't want to go to the cinema. Full stop. But nonetheless, that's something in particular that the idea of going there and sitting, eating horrible cinema food in front of seems particularly.
I'm sure it'll be a really strong film.
I think so too, but it's a film that I'd be quite happy to watch on television.
Yeah, I get you absolutely.
Basically, it's a holding pattern until the following week.
Yeah, basically. So anyway, those of us who've got the bug.
Easter,
yeah, it's Easter as well, which is an important thing. We need to come back to this. I forgot to put it in the running order. We're not around next week, people. Yeah. Easter weekend, we're off. Anyway, disc releases. So 4K, there must be loads coming out in 4K.
There's one 4K disc coming out, according to your list, and I've already got it and seen it. Mary Poppins Returns, which is okay. I mean, it's 50 years, at least, more than 50 years, 55 years since Mary Poppins. I guess the reason it's taken so long for a sequel is because after the original film, P.L. Travers wouldn't let Disney make any more Poppins movies because she hated the original so much. This is fine. It lacks the magic of the original film. It looks great.
Emily Blunt read me the phone.
Emily Blunt is practically perfect in every way in the lead role. No question about that. The film itself just feels like a soft reboot rather than a genuine sequel. And the songs are so forgettable that I couldn't hum one to you now, whereas I can hum to you 4 songs.
Just
straight
don't
off
hum me anything. I'm fine.
So a spoonful of sugar brings on type 2 is in there, is it?
So yes, the songs are forgettable. The film itself lacks the magic of the original. It's competently made. It looks very nice, and obviously Emily Blunt's fantastic. But in fact, all the cast are great. There's nothing wrong with the cast. Lin-Manuel Miranda is at least has a more believable English accent than Dick Van Dyke, who's also in it. I thought Dick Van Dyke was dead.
No. Dick Van. I think Dick Van Dyke.
He's playing the old bank manager, which he played in the original film in makeup, but now he doesn't need the makeup. Anyway, it's perfectly. If you're a big fan of Mary Poppins, it's fine. It's a good looking disc, nice Atmos soundtrack, but it just lacks the magic.
Talking about really bad English accents, that's another thing Hellboy got really wrong. Comically wrong.
Excellent, good to know. Just in case that you were still
just in case you were still wavering about going to see it. Yeah.
Just want to finish it off to you. Right. So yeah, Mary Poppins Returns 4K UHD. It does include a sing-along version. I haven't tried that myself, and sing some of those songs even if I could actually sing, which I can't. Anyway, that's out on 4K disc. Otherwise, not much else. On the Blu-ray side of things, of course, Mary Poppins Returns is also out on Blu-ray. Last Temptation of Christ, Criterion Edition. I've actually got the US release of this. I like the film. It's interesting. It's an interesting movie, unusual thing for someone like Martin Scorsese to make. And I'll watch any film which has David Bowie playing Pontius Pilate. We've also got Black Moon Rising on Arrow. Don't know what that is. Tin Star Season 2 and Season 1 and Season 2 in a box set. That's a Sky series, isn't it? Tin Star with Tim Roth, I think.
Tim Roth, yeah.
Long Time Dead on Secret Service from Network. Are you listening to some stuff I've never heard of?
Don't blame me, this was Cars.
3 from Eureka. Songs of Bernadette from Eureka. Mr. Topaz from the BFI.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Kaz isn't on this podcast, so he's just made some stuff up to see if Steve was prepared to read it.
Heat and Dust. Well, I've heard of Heat and Dust from the BFI and Shakespeare Waller from the BFI. So,
knock yourself out.
Not a classic week for disc releases, I think. Next week's going to be more fun because you've got Alien, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's on pre-order. Should arrive.
Also, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Captain America, Civil War are out.
Is the box set worth it? Because it was £38, and I wasn't sure if that was good value or not on 4K.
4K?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you got them?
No, I haven't. I don't have them. No.
Oh, it's no brainer. Get them, mate. Yeah, they're really good movies, particularly the second two. Actually, all 3 are good. I like Black. Yeah, they're all good films. They're worth getting, and that's quite a good price, to be fair.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
I'll go and press on buy now.
And streaming wise, well, I don't need to be the one that tells everyone that as of 2 a.m. on Monday morning, because I believe that Sky will be showing it simultaneously as the US broadcast, but then you can watch it again at 9 p.m. on Monday night, or if you've got Now TV, you can watch it anytime you like after the 2 p.m. screening. But Game of Thrones Season 8, the final season, is back. 6 episodes, the most expensive television. I think the budgets spread across are the most expensive episodes of TV ever made. I mean, the last season was pretty epic. This is the final. Living Dead.
Can you still call it a TV show though? Really, when you look at
phenomenon now.
It's a phenomenon. Yeah, it is a TV series, but it's a TV series like nothing you've ever seen, and the production values are top drawer. And whilst I did feel that season 7 was a little bit rushed at times, this is going to be awesome. I mean,
Well, they have had the time. If it still feels rushed, something has gone wrong.
Tell you what, though, interesting. This is an interesting question for you. So, Game of Thrones is now the most expensive television series of all time on a per episode basis. What was the most expensive TV series of all time prior to that on a per episode basis?
How long did it run for?
Any clues at all?
I can tell. My clue would be it's not what you think. It ran for 10 seasons.
Something like Dynasty or.
No. It was. Go, have a guess.
10 seasons.
Yes, the most expensive TV series.
And does this include how much they were paying people?
Yes. Which is
that
why
a clue?
The most expensive television series on a per episode basis.
It's Friends, presumably.
Yes, it was the last season of Friends.
Right.
Because they were paying them $6 million an episode just in salaries.
So and they didn't even have any dragons or tits. So
No.
on that regard, they've done significantly better with.
Yeah.
Incidentally, if you want to see a grown man humiliate himself and you use Twitter, I would direct people to Paul Mason, the idiot journalist who has adopted Marxism as the new flavour of the month, giving a Marxist analysis of the Game of Thrones universe, because frankly I thought I was quite good at writing shite, but I have to bow to the master. It's just embarrassingly bad, but amusing in its own little way. I mean, I'm obviously
What
quite.
were Karl Marx's views on dragons and tits?
It's hard to say. I'm not going to lie. I haven't read all of Das Kapital. And
No, it's
the
not
bits
what
I
I
did
did read. I
the
did try when I was a student.
the bits I did read were a long time ago, but there's just annoying gaps on his views on dragons and whether they are a tool of the bourgeoisie or potentially a weapon for the proletariat, or who knows. I mean, this is where it gets.
It would
this is
appear
where
in
it's
the
just
world of
mad.
Game of Thrones they are definitely a tool for the bourgeoisie, or at least the ruling classes.
This is very true.
So unless we count the White Walkers as the proletariat, is that what he was going for? This mass ranks of proletariat just gradually, slowly
God, no,
marching their way
Steve,
towards the wall.
that's already more nuanced than anything that he wrote this morning. So, it's. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. But there was in amongst the silliness, there was another throwaway line from a throwaway set of tweets from someone who's I can't remember, not someone I follow. It was sort of tweeted into my timeline that the Game of Thrones episodes up to the Red Wedding, which I don't think counts. Without going into what it is, I don't think counts as a spoiler.
Yeah.
It's a known entity in the series. It's a level. It's human frailties and consequences. Having set all the pieces up, it's recognisably human frailties which are bringing most of the characters to their untimely ends. And that's what made them those seasons so outstanding. And actually, it's the increasing inclusion of the supernatural in some ways weakens that. And I don't necessarily agree with all of that sentiment, but I do see where the argument comes from.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the supernatural element adds to it, and there's still fantastic characterization. People still make human mistakes, and it's still got some of the funniest lines of dialogue. My all-time favorite dialogue, having rewatched every season, was when Sir Davos is meeting up with Gendry, who haven't seen each other for a long time. He goes, "Oh, you're looking well. You're looking old." And he goes, "Nothing hooks you harder than time, lad." That was like a cracking line.
Yes.
Anyway, tomorrow morning, I'll have a cup of tea, bit of toast, and I'll be watching this. I can't wait.
I'll probably do my technical support at the same time. So,
So you'll be concentrating on that then, won't you?
Yeah, you know how it is.
But yeah, basically Game of Thrones last season, Endgame, and as I said, Hobbs and Shaw. And those are my highlights of the year, I think, so far.
Well, there you go. That's Steve all sorted. Actually, it occurs to me I'm going to watch the first episode. The first episode of this new season. I've still got the Valve amp in place, so I will be using that to amplify
Like dragon's breath warming your feet there.
amplifying my television signal with 4 enormous KT150 power pentodes. So yeah, good.
But what I am not looking forward to is the thing we're about to discuss next, Phil.
Oh, good segue.
Would be if he was here.
He was
Because
here.
obviously off to the toilet.
Sorry, I had to go if I couldn't wait any longer.
You just missed the
Oh.
cracking segue.
Did I? What was
Yes.
What was the segue?
We were talking about what I'm interested in this year, and then I said, but what I'm not interested this year is what we're about to discuss next. Over to you.
And that was a cracking segue, was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was quite good.
Yeah. So, if anybody was unaware, I was until I looked at YouTube and saw there was some live streams from Star Wars. It is Celebration this weekend while we're recording this.
I got to admit, I'd completely forgotten it was this weekend. I just happened to be on YouTube on a quick look
it's
on
the same.
something on Friday afternoon, and I saw 21 minutes after it had been released, there was episode 9 trailer. Give that butchers.
Yeah, right. So it is Celebration. Regular listeners will know myself and Steve's views on Star Wars and where we are personally when it comes to the saga and all the rest of it. I did have a look at the trailer, but I also had a look at the is it a round table they call it or whatever, where all the cast were there and JJ and all the rest of it.
I just couldn't stomach it.
I had a quick look through. I did a lot of fast forwarding and all. I've got to say, Billy D. Williams, you are an absolute legend, mate. You're an absolute legend.
Yeah, he is a legend.
He commanded that stage. He was absolutely spot on, and the way he was answering the questions was really, really good. How did you get back into Lando? And he said, Lando never left me.
I am Lando.
Yeah, so yeah, guy is an absolute legend. So trailer wise,
no, I was going to say that, but those celebration things, I just couldn't watch it. It's like looking at some sort of cult. It's like, for God's sake, guys, don't drink the Kool-Aid, whatever you do while you're there. It's just fun. I find it. The more it goes on, the more disturbing, slightly pathetic and sad I find it.
See the problem.
This is coming from someone who's been a fan of Star Wars since he was 10. All right, but I just think there's one thing to enjoy a film and some of the ancillary things that go around it.
But there was a mystique. When we were kids, there was you didn't have access to all the information. You couldn't get answers to all the questions. That's what made it unique. That's what made it, because then you imagined things. You filled in the gaps. You played with the toys and that kind of thing, and you read everything that came out that was connected with it, because it was another bit of information. In the internet age, in the geekdom age that we're in now, and have been for the last 20 years, it's just got more and more and more geeky and intense.
It's just become sinister and corporate, and it's like a cult, isn't it? Where everyone's saying the same thing, and no one says anything negative. Even I mean, God bless him, Mark Hamill tried. Before Last Jedi, he was dropping loads of hints about how he wasn't happy with the direction they were taking, and he wasn't happy with what Rian Johnson was doing. But he was contractually obliged to do it. But everyone's so nice and friendly and positive, and no one says anything negative. And you think, like, at some point someone's going to get a machine gun out and start killing people here. Because it's just not in that.
That's a bit dark. Yeah. I've got to say though, there was a thing I read. I can't remember where I read it now, but it was quite informative. It was basically an interview with JJ talking about what he was left with.
Fast Company. It was actually about Bad Robot, but basically J.J. Abrams did tangentially talk about doing episode 9 and how he was offered it. He was thought, well, I've got to start from scratch and I've got 2 years to do it in.
Yeah.
That was what put me off. The fact that I had such a short period of time to start from nothing, and that suggests that either there was no plan for the trilogy from the beginning, which is, if that's the case, that's just plain stupid. Or it means Rian Johnson chucked his plan out the window and he now has to pick up the pieces. Either way, what a cock-up. If you look at the way Marvel's run with Kevin Feige, I mean, they allow different directors and writers to work and stuff, but they clearly have a plan. Not always. Things do change, but there's basically a plan. We need to get from here to here, and we have to do this and this and this on the way. There's been sod all plan as far as I can see with Star Wars. There's just been a bit of this and a bit of that, and whatever works.
There's been no overriding, and this is the thing. There's been no management.
No,
there's been absolutely no. At least with George Lucas, he knew what he wanted, and he was making the calls, rightly or wrongly. He made the calls, and he kept everything, and it was his own money as well. So he kept things on budget, on time, and he knew what he wanted to put to the screen. And there is a consistency, even though the prequels are not great, there is a consistency over those 6 films that he was involved with that are clearly just not there with the new stuff. And I've got to say,
Kathleen Kennedy is a perfectly good producer. She can probably run Lucasfilm with her eyes closed. But what she's not been is a good overseer of the Star Wars universe in terms of the storytelling and the film production in particular. I think the cartoon stuff's much better because that's largely been Dave Filoni. I've been
watching him
overseeing it all.
He was on stage tonight before we came on to do the podcast. Him and Favreau.
Yeah, about the Mandalorian.
And I've got to say, those two together, they obviously love Star Wars. They understand it. They understand the storylines, the characters, the motivations, and all the rest of it. And they're sitting in Lucasfilm, and they've got the right people there to do it. And those two, I think, would be the right people to take it forward.
They would be. I enjoyed Clone Wars, which obviously was started with Lucas's involvement. I really enjoyed Rebels. I haven't seen Resistance yet, so I can't really comment on that. But I'm interested in seeing what they do with that. I'm very interested in The Mandalorian. That looks like it could be really interesting, and the kind of thing we've been talking about them doing. Get the budget down a bit, but make interesting stories. What is interesting is that Bob Iger, who's the head of Disney, has said publicly that they'll be taking they're taking hiatus on Star Wars films. So after Episode 9, it looks like that's going to be it. So I suspect that. Well, I'm pretty sure Ryan Johnson's trilogy is right out the window because no one's interested in that. I don't know about the Weiss and Benioff, who do the guys that do Game of Thrones. They were also supposed to be doing a trilogy. Whether that's going to happen now, I'm not sure. But I think they need to They need to have a couple of years away from the movies at the very least.
And it makes it easier to sack Kathleen Kennedy.
Well, that she can quietly leave in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it looks like what they're planning on doing is concentrating on TV series, live action TV series for Disney Plus. So you've got The Mandalorian, you've also got the one that's set with Cassian Andor and what's the robot from Rogue One? Can't remember.
The Alan Tudyk one, yeah, I know.
Yes, the Alan Tudyk one. Those two are going to be in a series as well for Disney Plus, set before Rogue One, obviously. Spoilers. So you've got those in a pipeline, plus you've got another season of Clone Wars. So there's some good stuff coming. I mean, and annoyingly, I'm probably going to have to get Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Well, does this take us to the next point of just like, oh, good, yes, more outlay to get the view?
Yeah, well, you see, this is what we're eventually going to come to. I mean, we discussed it when Steve wasn't
Should we just
here.
talk about the trailer before we go further? Before we actually mention
Oh,
it?
yes.
seen it.
Well, hang on. Yeah. Okay. Very quickly.
What do you think, sir? What do you think of the trailer?
What did I think? I like the fact that Anakin's lightsaber's back.
Well, how? It's broken half in the last
Hang
film.
on. I like that fact because that then leads on to where is that taking place at the beginning of the trailer, and I think it's Jeddah.
It looks like they shot it in Jordan, which is where they shot the Jeddah stuff for. So it's the same place.
So that's what it looks like. So that's interesting. She's obviously gone there to get a Kyber crystal or whatever. And I like the title, The Rise of Skywalker.
I don't understand the title.
But you see
What's
this
that mean?
because I think there's hidden meaning here. This is why maybe this is me adding something into it, but I quite like that.
So for those who don't know, maybe they don't. It's Star Wars Episode 9: The Rise of the Rise of the Skywalker, isn't it? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So,
and it's narrated by Mark Hamill, so obviously he's coming back. Yeah, and nobody,
sure
nobody ever goes.
Everyone's coming back.
Yeah, and you've got Palpatine's laugh at the end as well. Emperor's laugh at the end.
Bit of Death Star.
And yeah, you got the bit of the Death Star. So you know what it is. It's a J.J. Abrams film. It's going to be exactly the same as The Force Awakens in terms of it is going to play to the fans. They can't do it any other way. They can't.
Yeah, but he needs to answer questions and not set questions like he does, because his usual habit is lots of mystery boxes, isn't it? Like puzzle here, puzzle there. What's this? What's that? None of that, JJ. You need to start answering shit. Plus. It smacks a little bit of desperation.
It does.
Robin Lando, who's still alive, alive in the timeline, and who's still alive in real life. Right, Lando, in you go, mate. Palpatine, in you go, mate. I bet you they'll pull in Hayden Christensen somewhere. It's just
Samuel L. Jackson.
No, he's dead, isn't he?
Yeah, but so was Palpatine.
Force Ghost. Well, yeah, that's true. So is Palpatine, or is he not?
Is Dennis Lawson in it? Is Wedge coming back? Because if Wedge is coming back, I'll watch it because he's the greatest.
Yeah.
Two Death Stars.
The thing is, I'm going to be there in December. I'm going to go and see it.
Of course, I'll go and see it.
It'll be interesting to see, but like you say, it has to answer a hell of a lot of questions. It has to get itself
and it has
out
to
of
fix
a hole.
all the mess that
and
Johnson
I don't think you can do that in 3 hours. That's going to be.
I know that Ryan Johnson's always said that he hasn't had a problem with J.J. Abrams. Well, he said retconning, but I don't think that's necessarily the right word because it hasn't been completely finalised. But clearly, Abrams is intending to address race parentage, and I think that might be part of the title.
Yeah,
it doesn't make a lot of sense otherwise. But yeah, there's clearly I don't know about Snoke. Perhaps he's going to switch that one, go on with the Emperor. But the race parentage, I think, will still be an issue. It was set up too much in The Force Awakens to be just ditched the way it was in The Last Jedi. But
there has to be redemption as well, and who's going to be redeemed? Is it going to be Kylo Ren? Is he the Skywalker? Because he's from that.
He's the Skywalker. Yeah.
He's from that lineage. Yeah, his mum was a Skywalker.
Well, there you go. I mean, as I say, I'm struggling to give that much of a shit right now.
I love the way they made her outfit look like her outfit from the first film, so they could use footage of her with Carrie Fisher from the first film.
Yeah, or was that a whole dream sequence? At the beginning.
Who knows? Who cares? Do we really care anymore?
So anyway,
you know what I just like them to release a nice version of Star Wars on 4K disc, as in the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
Unmolested original theatrical version.
Yeah. Well, they own Fox now, so anything that's happened in the past.
Doing that. And I've read a lot of rumours that they're going to put out Force Awakens and Rogue One on 4K disc in time for Episode 9, which makes perfect sense. And then next year, given this is going to bring the saga to an end, Episode 9, they're going to do, all the rest of the stuff on 4K disc as well, which would again make perfect sense from a. Plus, also it'll all be available on Disney Plus as well, bringing us to Ed's point, which you were raising a second ago.
So, I mean, we have to come on to and finally wrap it all up in the fact that we covered this when you weren't here, Steve, which was the whole streaming thing and streaming services and all the rest of it, and fragmentation there and all the rest of it. But you can see that there's now these companies who have their master plans, and obviously Disney Plus is one of them. And I think looking at what I'm interested in watching in terms of content, I could see myself being a subscriber to that service.
It's down to the IP, isn't it? Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm Amazon. Yeah. Well, I've got Amazon mainly because the Prime delivers so much anything. But I'm interested in Lord of the Rings TV series. Netflix is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And yes, given that they've got Marvel and Pixar and Lucasfilm and Disney, and given that they've got the Mandalorian and the Rogue One prequel series in the works, they've also got at least 3 Avengers Marvel series in the works. I'm going to be getting Disney Plus, unfortunately.
The one that doesn't make any sense is Apple. It doesn't make any sense because what you can't see coming from Apple is Game of Thrones, because that just doesn't fit with their corporate identity, something like that. So what you're going to get is you're going to get this Jennifer Aniston thing about office workers, dull. You're going to get this thing from Spielberg, dull.
Spielberg's got a bloody cheek. 2-3 weeks before that announcement, he was slagging off Netflix and saying, you watch films at the cinema, and suddenly now he's all over. Obviously, that's why he was slagging off Netflix.
Yeah,
because he was in bed with Apple.
I just can't see it with Apple because they've got such a corporate identity that anything that's sweary or sexy or whatever, unless it's wholesome family thing, it's not going to work for them. I don't think, anyway, in my opinion. And this is what's going to happen when you start with the fragmentation side of things. I mean, we've seen it somewhat with the music side.
We can't pay for everything, so you're going to have to pick and choose. And clearly, you're going to pick and choose based upon what interests you. And from my perspective, Disney Plus is a bit of a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, got to say that. And because the only reason I again have Amazon is because I've got Prime Delivery. If it wasn't for Prime Delivery,
I don't watch a lot on Amazon.
Yes, it has to be said. Amazon has found a unique way around me caring because of the nature of the split. That what I'm paying for more than randomly generated television programming. Which means it does have it tends to survive because under the circumstances at the moment where it's consuming a limited amount of bandwidth that I have to ration and the rest of it, under normal circumstances it wouldn't survive, but it does because of the delivery thing, and I think that's going to keep it in play. Whereas Apple doesn't have there's no USP that Apple's going to give me that's quite the same as that, which means that I'm likely to sack it off. I have to be. I'm in 2 minds about the Disney one as well. It's the sort of thing where if whatever television eventually replaces this one has it built in, and I'm assuming it probably will, then you sort of look at the deals and see if it's worth it. But otherwise, I don't think immediately I'm going to make a leap in that direction. I can live without those films on demand, I have to say. So, and I don't, I will wait to see what the quality of the bespoke material is. What I find interesting, and you may or may not agree, is that some of the most surprisingly entertaining things I've seen on Netflix over the last couple of months have not necessarily been their marquee releases. I've loved that Sunderland documentary. I enjoyed the Formula One thing and stuff like that.
Really good.
I'm going to be interested to see with these launching services, what documentaries is Disney going to give me?
Oh, well, they own National Geographic, so.
So what if they put every single episode of Air Crash Investigation up and left them alone?
And Sharpie.
They probably will.
That would be, you see, now that's
and the thing Disney have got to get around is the problem that they've got to unwind their existing deals, which probably go on for a few more years. So they're going to have to rely a lot on new content they've made themselves, which looks pretty tasty, actually, before they can unwind all the deals they've got with people like Netflix and other streaming services for stuff like National Geographic, and obviously Netflix had their Marvel shows that they were doing for Disney and that kind of thing. So there's going to be some unwinding to go on. But I noticed one of the things they were plugging straight away was the Free Solo documentary. It was a National Geographic production about the guy that climbed El Capitan using just his hands and feet.
Fair enough.
Pretty
Well,
amazing.
that will be interesting to see what they do with that, because that could swing it. Because obviously I don't have access to Nat Geo anymore. So if they suddenly put all of that up, yeah, that'd be more interesting. We'll see how it goes. The one question that I have, or it's not a question, it's just an idea. Now, I've made references to this at various points. I've just done and uploaded for you guys a review of a piece of software called Rune, and it's entirely music based. It has no video connotations whatsoever. But one of the things it does do is that it takes your content and then you can add Tidal and Qobuz subscriptions. And if you've got something favorited in your Qobuz library, for example, it's not in a separate Qobuz bin. It's integrated into your wider library. Everything just becomes an easily browsable single library of content. And whilst I'm aware that the licensing connotations of doing this are nightmarish, any of the enormo television manufacturers looking for a genuine USP, their next, if you suddenly take this plethora of
Already
streaming
there, actually, Ed. The Samsungs have a thing called Universal Guide this year. The new TVs, the new platform.
And does it
Universal
work with
Guide
everything?
is designed. No, it's starting to, but obviously they have to get agreements in place. But the plan ultimately is to bring all the different services into a single, interface, and
Now, you
therefore
see-
making it much easier to find content.
For people who are perhaps less concerned about what the peak net output is on something, and are more concerned, it's like, I've got 87 streaming services and they're all fragmented across the operating system. That is a killer app if they make that work. But then equally, there is scope for let's face it, there's scope for a third party organization to build it and license it. Obviously the licensing loopholes, I imagine, are simply enormous. But even with the limited amount of content that across that I actually bother with at the moment, I still feel it's annoying. It's like, oh, that's not on that, it's on that, and just moving around. I just want it all. I want someone to just tear up the rule book and combine it all in a way where I essentially just do what you just said there. I want to browse one list for the bits that I want.
That's what they're planning. But like you say, it's dependent on getting the various services to opt into it, and that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
For some
Well, this
reason.
is why I think it needs to, unfortunately, potentially be like Rune is third-party software to which manufacturers are signing up. In some ways, it possibly needs to be a piece of third-party software which is licensed across television companies. But we'll see. This is vaporware; it doesn't exist. It's but within this fragmenting of the streaming service market, there still needs to be the ability to rationalize. And given that all these companies fervently believe that we're all going to hand them money for their own, various train sets, then it's not going to be them that does it.
What normally happens, and what might happen here, is that you get loads of services all launching, and then they all start to be bought up by the others, and you're then left with two or three. And that's the way I think it will go.
Do you mean that someone's going to buy Netflix? Because
Yeah, I think Netflix, Amazon, Apple, and Disney are all going to stay the same. It's maybe the other. I don't know. I think who else is there? I suppose if you're looking at studios, Sony. I see Sony doing their own thing. They've got enough probably to warrant that with Sony Music as well.
We've got BritBox to contend with.
Oh, yep, we've got BritBox coming. And then who else is there? Warner's and Paramount and Universal. See, I can see those three don't have enough IP to survive on their own. Maybe they get together and they do like a BritBox version, but for three studios. Sony's the only studio other than Disney that might have enough, but even they haven't got a lot. In terms of their...
Sony, what do they have in terms of back catalogue stuff? Do they have the MGM back catalogue?
Did they buy? No, I thought. Did they buy that, or did Fox buy that?
Oh, it was one of the others. I can't think of the top of
Fox
my head.
had distribution for it, but I think you might. I think you're right. I think Sony bought it. But there's a Criterion channel now in the States, isn't there? Streaming service, which kind of covers the more esoteric, less popular movies, which is kind of quite a good idea. But someone like Disney can definitely do it because they've got 4 massive titles to use. Companies, in terms of studios, and Amazon has got a gigantic checkbook, and Netflix is obviously a dominant player already. But Apple, I think, are going to struggle even with all their money. They have to have something that's worth watching, and from what they showed me a few weeks ago, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And I don't think any other studios have got enough on their own to warrant their own streaming service. So, Warner Brothers have got some interesting stuff in the back catalogue, but like the Harry Potter franchise, that could be something they could leverage off, possibly. But yeah, it's going to be difficult because people aren't going to pay. You can't buy them all. It's not feasibly possible.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to pick and choose. So it's going to come down to what you got.
So I guess the ultimate question is that then what happens with your existing companies who offer services specifically in the UK? Sky, BBC, ITV, so on. So
I think Sky stays a number, to be honest.
Sky, let's face it, you're already looking at the numbers, and it's that we've got fair subscription rises year on year, and the thing is that there's just not enough new people coming through the door, and essentially you've just got this ever shrinking. Asking for more money off a shrinking selection.
Plus, they built their entire business model on Premiership football, and they're losing that piece by piece as well.
Yeah,
you're going to have Amazon next year, right?
Well, that's the reason I asked that question, because I noticed today that Amazon had the tennis on their EPG now. So it's only going to take a matter of time before these companies. I
think Amazon already are going to be showing Premiership matches next year. Obviously, BT have got some.
Yeah.
If you look at Sky's, technically Sky used to be a bit of a, used to lead the way a lot, but now they're well behind the competition.
Yeah. And then you've got the NFL on YouTube, which is big business. The NFL generates huge sums of money.
So ultimately, it's weird because people, you sort of, for various reasons, Murdoch is, built up as, a bogeyman, and I know that Steve and I disagree on some of the elements of this, but ultimately, when you see all of this, these efforts, this is efforts to consolidate a platform which is in itself just melting like an iceberg in the Mediterranean. These are not aggressively expansionist policies. This is desperate consolidation in the face of a market which has changed beyond all recognition. And it's one of those things where, and as Steve says, Sky's queue system, it's good, but it's not
that good because the little satellite boxes aren't 4K for a start. There's some definite shortcomings in that system. I just think that the market's changed. You said, Ed, fundamentally satellite delivery's out. Forget it. It's all going to be streaming. IP delivery is the way to go. And you look at what Netflix in particular are doing in terms of the quality of the productions that they're doing, but also the delivery, with Atmos and Vision, and 4K. They're streets ahead of the game compared to like we said, Now TV 720p in stereo. It's just not good enough.
But let's face it, it's not that they can't. I think it's deliberate. Yes, there will, but essentially, Sky has the opportunity to migrate a potent content platform across to Now TV and challenge in a different domain. But I just think that it's as a company which has fundamentally had a golden goose, it's a reactionary thing, and I don't think they know how. I don't think they can bring themselves to do it.
And the final thing I think we need to broach here is like this, utopia of a future of electric cars. Where's the bandwidth coming for all of this? If we're moving on, are we going to 5G? Is 5G the answer to this?
No. It's a combination. Hardwired internet across multiple across the major heads of population. But 5G is going to start covering people in the Withers blanks. Yes, and then also outside the UK, you've got the Musks of this world and so on and so forth talking about putting another generation of IP over satellite networks into orbit that deal with some of the crippling latency issues and so on and so forth, and the costs. And yeah, essentially, the bits that can be wired will be wired and speeds will further increase. The bits that can't be will still see speeds increase to the point where none of this matters, is my totally unfounded suspicion of what will happen. And I've
Okay, and on that bandwidth bombshell, whatever it is.
We'll try that again.
It'll do. Right, so that's it for the podcast this week. My thanks to Ed Selly.
Well, this is called Lick My Love Pump.
And Steve Withers.
Exactly. One louder.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AV Forums for latest reviews, news and video, and of course leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. Also, you can head over and check out our YouTube channel for videos on the latest product launches and reviews, and feel free to subscribe while you're there. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. We're not here for Easter, so we'll see you then.